So I thought, given that the last video I posted was a little bit deeper into practice, that I might do something a bit lighter, because I could sure use it right now. I had seen Rochelle post the top 11 current decks tag that she put out a while back, and I've been meaning to do it. But now seems like the right time. I've been watching, like, whatever responses pop up to that. I haven't always felt up to commenting lately, but it's been really fun to see, like, just what is, like, in current circulation. And I like that this is a deck du jour, basically, decks of the day. Real quick, there will be a significant portion of these that I've mentioned in recent videos, so I'm going to leave those ones more towards the end. So if anyone's kind of been around my channel a minute, doesn't want to, like, go through all those again, you can just leave when we get through the other decks that I'm showing here. But the first one, just to get on into it, is the Lonely Dreamer Tarot, which I don't think I've talked about much. It is one of my relatively newer decks. I can't remember when I got it now. But I adore this deck. I don't even remember, like, I knew it was on my radar, but I don't even remember what I had initially thought of it when I saw it. But it just, at one point, I got it because I thought it would just go so perfectly with an Oracle deck I got in. I wound up liking them aesthetically, but not really feeling like I wanted to work with the two of them together. Like, it just, even though aesthetically it worked, it just wasn't vibing. I don't know. Anyway, this deck is gorgeous. It's on a beautiful linen cardstock. It's all Redon artwork. Odilon Redon, who apparently had a solitary childhood. I just read that on the back. That's interesting. I didn't know about that. But yeah, first off, these backs. I love these backs. So this is a sort of repurposed art deck. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. And I just find this artwork to be so beautiful and evocative. Like, I love this Hermit card, and I think the name Lonely Dreamer really suits this deck. One of the first readings that I did working with this was related to dream work and kind of figuring out a dream I'd had, getting into a little more depth with it. And, like, right out of the box, this deck just felt so connected with that type of work, but then also it just feels like a good deck for counsel, for softer messages, but still poignant. Something about the artwork just feels so dreamy. Yeah, that word really suits his art style, I would say. And I've just really enjoyed it. It's definitely, like, offhand, I would think it'd be more of a fall deck for me. But it feels kind of like a all-round type deck when working with it. Like, when I want to speak to someone with this energy, so to speak, yeah, I find myself really enjoying turning to it. I've used it mostly on its own at this point, even though I got the Oracle deck by the same creator using Odilon Redon's artwork. And that one pairs beautifully with it, but I do find I have that paired with something else that I'll talk about later, and it's kind of like stuck there right now. I'm enjoying using this deck just as a tarot deck and just by itself. I do think at one point I showed it in a video pairing-wise or something. Maybe I did mention this at some point. Loveliest decks. Maybe that was, I don't know. I can't remember now. And someone, I think, had asked about this card and thinking of it with the Four of Pentacles. And I think it does show that very boxed-in mentality is sort of how I see this, but, like, boxed in with your resources, like boxed in with what you think is available or willing to give, like, you know, that head coming out of a box and being stuck in that place kind of reads the stagnancy of the four for me with the Pentacles, and just kind of holding on to everything And I also get this sense of like guarding it, like this big head keeping an eye out that no one comes and messes with this. No one touches it. So I don't know. The guidebook is also really cool for this deck. I have some cards out because like the main way I've been using it is before I go to therapy, which I started back up recently just to give it a go. And I like pulling cards from this beforehand about what to focus on because I don't know, anybody else who's been in therapy before, sometimes it's like, man, what do I pick from this past week? Because there's lots of places to go. And I find it helps me to pull something ahead of time just to kind of focus in which angle to go through. But the book is also very cool because it talks about the artwork, but then also Esther Tishman, who has a YouTube channel, like she contributed to the guidebook. And so there's her insights and her way of working through, I can't remember what it's called, her like card challenge to work through a deck in a certain order, one card a day. It's like escaping me right now. So it's interesting to see that in practice, her having done that with this deck and being able to like basically read her personal notes of taking that journey with this deck. So that's another cool feature of it. But most of the time, to be honest, I find this to be the kind of deck where I just really enjoy leaning into what the imagery brings up for me and makes me feel. And the way that certain things were superimposed to fit the artwork with the like it just was done so beautifully. And the artwork is so beautiful. And I've really enjoyed working with this and the interesting perspectives it's given me on cards and everything else. I've thought about what I might edge it, but I'm just a bit of a chicken to edge it, I think. I've never edged this kind of a linen deck. I've edged Llewellyn linen decks, but I feel like those are different and I'd be terrified to mess it up. So I don't know if anyone has experience with that. Let me know, but I kind of would love to edge it in like one of the darker russet colors. Or, geez, it would also be really cool to do this deep navy in some way and have that be that would be cool too. Anyway, so that's the first deck that has been a standby, a go-to anytime I sort of feel like this has been the on-hand deck that is my everything deck when I just need a quick message. I've not been journaling with it as much, but I really want to because it lends itself to that. I've just been doing other stuff. Okay, so the next two decks I'm going to show as a pair, and then the one after this will be a pair, and then we'll be going back into single decks. But I will allude to the pair that it's intended for. Anyway, I don't know why I'm explaining all that. So it is spring now. I haven't really felt spring, even on the days where it has very much felt spring outside. Probably need to get out more, let's be honest. But I have this pair out as like my main spring pair to start with. Herbal Astrology Oracle. My brother got this for me, my other brother. And I love this deck, and I worked with it a lot last spring. I want to show you the backs and the stones I have for these two, because I'm really happy that I had stones that fit both of them. Because I like doing that, having a crystal on top of my deck. Especially when it's an outworking deck, I don't know, I like that. So we have Herbal Astrology, and then we have Tarot. Help me. I took French in high school, but help me. Le Tarot à Ramures étrange. So I don't know if it directly translates to Tarot of Strange Branches or Tarot of Strange Antlers. I think I saw someone who actually spoke French saying once which it was. But so if you know, let me know. But I can't remember off the top of my head now. And I got a beautiful piece of prehnite that fits this deck, and then a piece of celestite that fits this deck. And I'm thinking of edging Herbal Astrology in that blue color that's in there, which is pretty much a celestite color. So that would look really neat. And this one I'm also thinking of edging like the green prehnite type color, little accents of green in here. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. And I think that's part of why I've had these out and I've pulled from them, but I haven't quite sank into them yet. It's also because the other decks that we're going to get to later, I've just been like I can't pull myself away from them. I'm still doing work with them. And I could still have a separate journal, like daily journal practice, because I'm not doing that work daily, or I'm like sitting on spreads a lot, but I don't know. It's just kind of a lot. But I have been pulling from these two, not so deep, just to get familiar with them. I had actually gotten a different deck to pair with this tarot, thinking that it was going to be like the perfect pair, but it didn't really feel right when I got it. Like it wasn't vibing for me. So I wound up perusing what I had and figuring out that I like this pair actually aesthetically, and then also how they've read so far. I haven't gone super, super deep with them, but that's sort of been the point of getting to know them this way, I guess. So these paired together, I didn't expect necessarily. I kind of have Herbal Astrology paired with something else that if I do like a spring deck video, I would definitely show, because it was like, to me, my perfect pair with this oracle. But it also looks really beautiful with this tarot. And this deck, while it is in French, I can still, at least with the titles, I totally can navigate them. And with some of the guidebook, like reading, I can kind of pick up a message, but it's been a while since I was in French class. So I do use Google Translate if I want to dig deeper. But this is also like a really beautifully intuitive watercolor vibe. And I've really enjoyed that. And it feels spring maiden to me. I kind of thought maybe it would, for me, connect a bit with like the maiden aspect of Persephone. I don't know if it will. I'll have to see. I can also pick up more of like an Artemis type energy in this with some of it. And then at other times, I'm kind of like, I don't know that either one of them is like necessarily going to claim this deck. But we'll see. I think if I edge them and get them, like have them out on my altar more rather than at my desk where I'm kind of only ever pulling very casually, that'll probably make a difference, because I really want to work with these. I've just been really tied in with the other decks. I want to go deep with these and like really work a journaling practice. But yeah, I just think they look so beautiful together. And this deck, in some ways I love the cardstock. I love how the cardstock treats the artwork. I think it's a very good pairing in that sense. But it does have this kind of wonky thing going on. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show the type of bow, but it's the sort where it, wiggles. It's kind of bent this way a little bit. And I've tried to straighten it out, but it just doesn't want to be. This is how it wants to sit. And the other thing is that it's not the most flush cut of decks. But on the other hand, the like slight wonkiness of it, even in the way that the cards kind of feel a little bit more organically cut, sort of fits the vibe and energy of it. So, there's that to consider. I just think they make a really beautiful pair, and I've liked how they've read together so far in my kind of more casual pulls. Yeah, what else can I say? It's a really springy pair, so I think as I start to feel more into that, and then if I finally get the goal to edge these, look at this Ace of Cups. Like, it's just, I love this deck. I just love the energy of it. So I really do want to sink into it. And hopefully that is coming. I still need to really officially set up my spring journal. Maybe I have to do all these things, and that will help me move on. It is a little bit of a more difficult shuffle. Like, I was thinking doing it, like, man, if I had arthritis in my hands, I think this would kind of not be comfortable, to be honest, because you have you have to deal with a little bit of a stiffer cardstock on this, whereas Herbal Astrology is really easy to shuffle for me and has a nice kind of flex, even though the cardstock is similar. It just feels, maybe also because it's cut incredibly flush like you generally see with decks, it just feels easier to shuffle, but that's okay. This, of course, overhands just fine. But yeah, I just think it's a really beautiful deck. I'm so glad I got it. I really was thinking this would be like a Maiden Persephone connection for me, but I don't feel like it needs to be that now that I have it. It doesn't necessarily feel like it wants to be claimed for that. But I do feel like this is going to be a prominent one in my spring practice as spring is unfolding and as I get more into that. Theoretically, I don't know. I've been in this whole descent thing and it just is ever descending. So we'll see how that plays out, you know. Some things can't be rushed. I don't try to force it too much, like as much as I've wanted to dive into these. Like, if it just doesn't feel right quite yet, and I'm still so drawn to those other decks, then that's kind of probably where I should be. But, oh yeah, the guidebooks, again, they're in French, but something I noticed that I really like about how it's laid out is all the twos are together. So you get, you know, from each suit, all the twos, then all the threes. Like, that's a different way of laying out the guidebook that I actually quite like. It's neat, because then you're kind of going numerologically across the whole entirety of the minors. And yeah, you know, I'm sure there's an app that would make this easier, but a lot of times I've just taken a picture and then copied the text and pasted it into Google Translate to get a full translation into English for myself. And the writing, from what I can tell so far, is also really beautifully done. So really glad I got this deck. I got it on Amazon France, but had it shipped here, and that worked out fairly well at that point. Who knows what that looks like now? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. But so that's the first pair. The next pair that has been a thing lately, these two decks, we've completely switched vibes. We've gone another direction entirely. And I love this direction so much. So this is the Emerald Papyrus Tarot. I was going to post an unboxing, and then I kind of was just like, I don't know if I feel like doing unboxing videos. I mean, I already recorded it, but I was just like, I don't know. And it was the first impressions versus having it for a time. And this is the kind of deck that having it for a time, I think, makes a difference. And then the Oracle that I specifically got knowing that this was going to come because this was a Kickstarter is Glyph Sacred Symbols Oracle. So some of you probably have seen this one bouncing around. I love this Oracle deck. I got it in first before the tarot, and I was so looking forward to working with them together, because even just working with this one on its own, you know, it's a good intuitive practice type deck is what I basically was finding it. A fun way to use it because it's rather simple. It's beautiful aesthetically. I love this whole aesthetic. This kind of rosy, also like intermingling with some Egyptian vibes. Like it just, I love the vibe. And it's just basically a symbol with the name of the symbol and one keyword. And sometimes I completely ignore the keyword because my head goes somewhere else. And I have at times found myself almost wishing that it wasn't there because, I don't know, sometimes my mind goes elsewhere. But it is just a gorgeous Oracle deck. It's very simple, but it can be profound in its simplicity, and I like that about it. It's a little bit more clarifier, but it depends on how you use it. I've kind of messed around with a few different ways of working with it. the backs are gorgeous. Like, look at these two together. Such a vibe. Like, that's just highly satisfying to have that on my altar. I haven't had them out again because the other decks that I'm talking about later have taken my whole practice. But, wait, why did I pick them both up like that? Let's look at them paired together. I think you will see that they aesthetically, like, 10 out of 10. But also, I have found in working with them that the messages... let me see if I can fix the lighting a bit. I'm gonna have to see how that plays out in editing. But yeah, I have found that the way that they pair together in reading has been really beautiful. I love how they sync up in the readings that I've done so far. I've not done anything super deep. I've just done small little 3-card type pulls on stuff that's not that deep, just to get to know these, because I find with the tarot deck, I have found that this deck is it's spiritual, but it's also stoic. Like, it's spiritual from a stoic standpoint, if that makes sense, in the way that it has read. Like, it's very direct. I don't want to say it's cold, because I don't think that's really... It's very stoic, I guess is the only word I can think of to describe it. But we have 5 of columns, horns, which here are keyed with integrity, and then ace of columns. So that's interesting, like approaching conflict with integrity to understand almost the point of it all is what I'm getting at. Like, remember why this all started and what the whole vision here was to begin with, and whether or not the conflict involved is being fought out in integrity of that. I just think it's interesting the way that they read together, and of course visually it's just so satisfying. I can't deny it. Then here the Emperor, Eye of Horus, and the Chariot. Like, it's very powerful. Even the simple readings I've done, they like want to go further and be more profound. I just haven't, again, given this as much time as like a main practice. So I've sat with readings here and there when I've wanted to take a break, and I have journaled with them, because getting to know this deck, you know, it does different things. It's definitely not like an RWS clone. So it kind of takes getting used to. And then the only other thing, there are like a couple little things with this deck, and one of them is the queens are the knights. That still trips me up. I still have to very like consciously slow my gears down and rerun them in the other direction when it comes up. But I mean, I am adaptable when it comes to card systems and everything, so I can work with it. I'm reading for myself, so I can be slow with it. But other than that, I pretty much really love this deck. There are a couple instances where I kind of wish the image from one card was used on a different card, usually within the same suit. But there's like 1 or 2 instances of that where I just feel like the image more resonates with a different card. But I still get it though. Like, I still see, you know, where it was going being placed in that card position. But something I'll say with the guidebook that I've noticed is for a lot of those types of cards, which I think the 2 sets where I felt that way were all minors. I've noticed that the evocation, which is sort of like a mantra in this book, aligns really well with how the image is shown. So that's sort of what I've leaned into with this. But the book is neat. I mean, you get stars, you get values or like correspondences. You get the deeper meaning, which is often the more traditional meaning. And then you get 2 journaling questions and evocation. The illuminated interpretation of the card and the shadow interpretation of the card. that's a really neat way of breaking down the guidebook, I think. And when it comes to the symbols and intentions, you know, with the cards, the more Egyptian symbol aspect of things is more so referenced in the majors. In the minors, you know, to some degree, there probably just wasn't either room, or I don't know, maybe they're not that deep kind of thing. Like, I don't know. But that's pretty cool that you at least get it with the majors. And I've been interested in those when they've popped up. They've felt like a interesting, relevant addition to the card to include the symbols that were chosen. But yeah, other than that, I love this pairing. It's not like super spring, but something about it I'm liking for spring because it still keeps me dark, but it feels refreshing in a way, I guess, because it's so different from anything I have. So that is the Glyph Sacred Oracle and then the Emerald Papyrus Tarot. The next deck I want to mention that I've been pretty obsessed with is the Wisdom of Artemis Oracle. I saw this, I don't know how, I don't know if it popped up for me on Instagram or what, but this is made by an independent indie creator in Canada. And she was having like a special discount on it because it was like when it first was released, and I just happened to find it, and she honored the discount for me because I was technically just past when it, I think because of the time zone difference. Anyway, that was really sweet of her to do that. And I'm so grateful for it because with the shipping, it was a lot to get here. But this is a found art deck that goes through all the epithets, or I don't know if it's technically all, but like very many of the epithets of Artemis. And I love this. I mean, I just think this is really a cool idea in service of getting to know all of her epithets more, and then also to work with them as like a daily pull, or if I'm, you know, crafting a ritual and I want to call upon a particular aspect that, you know, is relevant or what have you. Like, this is just such a neat way to do it. And each card has the epithet, what it represents in a single keyword, and then a phrase. And then in the guidebook, let's see, that's 43. In the guidebook, you get the meaning briefly, but, you know, a paragraph, and then you get what this is looking like in balance, out of balance, and then how to restore balance. So it gives you sometimes like a ritual idea or a spell type idea. This is about creating a sigil. And then it also talks about the actual meaning, like the direct translation, the Greek, like how it looks in Greek, and then how to pronounce it, and a little bit about that epithet, which is great because, again, if you're from a learning standpoint, like, I just think this is a really cool tool to be able to connect with her and get a deeper, more studied understanding of Artemis, because I've worked with her in various ways for so long that I kind of have at times neglected to do that because the connection's always been really so strong that I haven't. But this is a great tool for it. And then, of course, because of the nature of the artwork, it pairs beautifully with Tarot of the Huntress, which I think I'll do like an Artemis deck video at some point and show that, as I don't want to drag it out here because I haven't really been working with it much. I've just been obsessing with it. I've been working with Persephone. So I feel Artemis is coming back around, but she kind of chucked me over to Persephone and was like, do some stuff. And I was like, okay. So I've been doing that. And I'm very much looking forward to working with this more in like regular practice. So I think that about covers all the fresher decks that haven't really been bouncing around my channel the past couple videos. The next section of decks are going to be the ones that I've been working with hardcore for the last few months, and that have been mentioned in my previous videos. So if you've been around and you don't really want to hear me talk about all those again, feel free to tune out. Thank you for being here while you were here, though. And I'll just move on into the next decks for anyone who's not quite seen that. Okay, so the first are worked with together. So these 3 decks I'm just going to show all together. And I think I counted it right that by the time I'm done with this, we are going to be at 11. So, but the first 3 decks are the ones I've been working with Persephone. I've been working with Tarot of Persephone's Garden for several months now, alongside Divine Nature, and then Dark Mirror Oracle over here. I got a little bit, like a couple weeks into that. And I'm really glad that I got this Oracle deck. First of all, because it's out of print now. You can still get it easily, cheaply, but I didn't realize it was going out of print, so I'm just glad that I have it, and how it's added to practice. Tarot of Persephone's Garden, I had this for a while, wasn't sure if I was going to connect in, and then Persephone was coming in hot. So my work has been focused on that, and it's been, on the deeper side, on the way more vulnerable than I've felt working with Artemis. So it's been a lot to process, but it's been necessary. And I love the way these 3 decks work together, how I've come to work with them together. I also love working with just these 2 or these 2 and doing it that way. Yeah, this is like a special triptych for me. And they're pretty much bonded together. Even though Divine Nature looks really nice with Lonely Dreamer Tarot, I also like that pairing. It's just, for me, this deck has a lot of, it just kind of works really well as a Persephone deck that's not necessarily all dark or all light. Like, it feels rounded in the way the messages in this one pull through. And even the spread I have out now that I've had out for like close to a week, I just look at the interplay of the cards between this artwork and this artwork, or because that was a larger 9-card spread that I just did, it's the middle top card is from Divine Nature, and the bottom as well is from Divine Nature, and the way those interplay like so perfectly. And then Dark Mirror for me has been that shadow work, like deeper shadow work of like, okay, what is the ugly thing that needs to get rooted up here or faced that's really more unconscious and a little uncomfortable to deal with. And it's very much played that role in readings. So I love this pair. Also, I think Kara is coming up with another edition of this deck that does some really cool things. But yeah, I've been following along with Kara, and she's making some changes to a new edition of this deck, and they look so cool. And I'm very much looking forward to how that all unfolds. I love this copy of it. I'm like super bonded, but they just look like really neat changes that give it a different kind of life. So that will be interesting. But yeah, if you want to see a deeper look at how I actually worked with the 3 of these, I don't want to go on too much because I've talked about them. And I have like the whole video I posted just before this that goes way more into depth of how I've actually worked with them. So if you're into that, feel free to go check that out. But these 3 have been going everywhere with me, because even when I'm not, even when I'm just working through the same spread that I was working through 2 days prior or whatever it is, like I just like having the decks with me wherever I'm at. So those are my Persephone decks. Now we're going to get into my Hades decks. So in that last couple videos I did where I talked about Tarot Obscuro, I mentioned that it was it is the only deck I ever got in and was like almost convinced I was just going to end up selling, because I don't know, it just came in and I was like, man, I knew you were weird, but you're very weird. And I just wasn't sure I was going to connect with it and the imagery and some of the way the digital guidebook is, I don't resonate with. And so that really threw me for a bit. I think that was a big part of it too. But it wound up sitting on my desk for months until I just randomly picked it up one night, not intending to do anything all that serious, and very quickly realized that, yeah, I probably should have pulled this out and worked with it a bit more and given it a chance in working rather than just keeping it on my desk in order, because I really felt it immediately connect with Hades. And maybe some of it was just timing the way that it needed to go. But I'm sort of like, I almost can't believe I didn't feel or see that connection when I got it in. Because once that struck me that evening, I pulled it out and decided to finally shuffle it. And I'm going through the deck. Like this card, I was just like, oh, wow. Like, especially after interacting with his energy, it was just so clear to me that this, basically I leave this out as a significator because I just think this King of Cups looks and feels like the vibe I'm getting. So interesting that we'll leave him over there. I have more work to do with him that I have honestly put off because Persephone goes to deep, vulnerable places, and with him, I feel even more so. It's not just going there, it's like really, really going there. And I wound up pairing it with this Oracle d'Or, which again is from that same creator of the Lonely Dreamer Tarot and using artworks from the same artist. Why am I doing this? This is what happens when you're like not all there and then are talking and moving your hands at the same time. But as a pair, aesthetically, of course, they certainly vibe, but I also find this to be such a great shadow work deck to get to the root of something. A lot of times I've just worked with the tarot deck, but when it feels like this has something to add or that I'm drawn to work with it in a spread, every time I have, it's added a layer or uncovered a layer is maybe the better way to think of it. And yeah, they work beautifully together. I love, of course, I love how they look together. And this deck in particular is just, at this point, dedicated Hades deck for me. I can't see using it for anything else. It feels very connected at this point for me. It is strange. It's different. But when the images are in front of you and they come up in response to something, or at least for me, I went from feeling like even the ones that I thought were strange and not necessarily going to strike my intuition to ignite, I would still end up pulling those cards and being like, oh man, I get it. Like, that's so weird that it made no sense to me in a way flipping through it. But then, pulling the card in response to something, I get the nuance. So I've really been glad that this deck, which was certainly not an inexpensive deck to acquire, has wound up working out for me. So it just took some time though. I had it for a couple months before I really gave it a chance. But like I said, maybe it just was a timing thing that had to work out that way. Because then I had more work with Persephone and I was not at all expecting Hades to be showing up, which in hindsight's kind of silly since I was working so closely with Persephone. But at any rate, I have found it really interesting also. I mean, of course, given that the artwork is so different in this situation than it is with the decks that I do work with Persephone, of course it's going to feel different in the readings, but it's also the energy and manner through which something wants to get communicated is interesting to experience the differences between different energies. even just the vibe in the room is different. And I can sense, I don't know. See, I don't know how much I want to get into this stuff because it's like still new for me to talk about it. Anyway, that is the last pairing of decks. Those are my 11 decks that are decks du jour, but these last, 5 decks have been decks du however many months it's been, several months. So, and even though it's kind of working through dark stuff, it's kind of just where I'm at. And just because the season has shifted externally doesn't mean that I'm done doing the work. I kind of thought it was going to work that way, but it has not felt that. There's still much to excavate and uncover is where I've been at. So yeah, hopefully I can edit this down into something that's not obnoxiously long. I don't know. I try, but it doesn't pan out usually. And you enjoyed seeing the 11 decks that are currently making their rotations in my practice. I like that this tag is so freeform and is really just like of the moment, because of course that's easier than picking a somewhat definitive top 10 or something like that. And it's probably a fun one to even do like months from now and just do what are the 11 decks of the day now, you know? So thank you, Rochelle, for creating this tag. It's fun and takes the pressure off, and I love seeing everyone's responses. I hope you have a good day, evening, morning, or whatever it is by you, and I'll catch you in the next one.